Hey everyone, hope you're doing great. Welcome back to my channel. In today's video, we'll dive into what if Deku was trained by Kazuma Kiryu after the sports festival. Smash that subscribe button, and be sure to peek at the description below. Let's begin. The pain was a living thing. It didn't throb, it hummed, a low-frequency vibration that seemed to originate in the marrow of his right hand and echo all the way to his teeth. Izuku Midoriya sat on the edge of his bed, the room dark save for the sickly blue glow of his laptop screen. The volume was turned down to a near-silent whisper, but the images were loud enough. He was watching the replay of the UA Sports Festival. Specifically, his match against Todoroki. He watched himself on the screen, a desperate, green blur of self-destruction. He saw his own fingers snap like dry twigs. He saw the purple bruising bloom across his skin in high definition. He saw a boy who knew only one way to win, by sacrificing pieces of himself until there was nothing left to give. Recovery girl said she wouldn't heal me again, Izuku thought, his gaze drifting from the screen to his bandaged hand. The heavy cast felt like a shackle. I can't keep doing this. If I keep shattering my bones, I'll be useless before I even graduate. All might pick me to carry the torch, but right now, I feel like I'm just burning it out. He closed the laptop with a snap. The silence of the apartment felt suffocating. His mother Inko was asleep in the next room, exhausted from days of worry and tears. Every time he looked at her, he saw the terror in her eyes, the fear that her son was breaking himself apart for a dream that was too big for his body. He needed air. Izuku grabbed a hoodie, draped it carefully over his cast, and slipped out the front door. Musudifo was a city of two faces. By day, and in the main districts, it was the shining capital of heroes' society. It was all might on billboards, pristine sidewalks, and civilians walking with the confident gait of the protected. But if you walked far enough, if you took a wrong turn past the gleaming shopping arcades and the hero agencies, the city's underbelly revealed itself. Izuku didn't mean to end up in the red light district. He had just started walking, his feet carrying him away from the expectations of UA, away from the pitying looks of his classmates. He walked until the streetlights flickered with an irregular buzz and the clean pavement turned into cracked asphalt stained with oil and old gum. Here, the neon signs didn't advertise hero merchandise or family restaurants. They advertised gyabakura, mahjong parlors, and bars with names like Serena or Bantam. The air smelled different here, a mixture of stale beer, yakitori smoke, and distinct, sharp ozone. Izuku pulled his hood lower. He stood out. Even in civilian clothes, he had the aura of a good kid, a UE student who had taken a wrong turn. He should turn back. He knew he should, but his mind was still replaying the fight with Todoroki. How do I control it? How do I fight without breaking? Hey! Are you listening to me, old man? The shout shattered his thoughts. Izuku flinched, instinctively stepping into the shadow of a vending machine. Across the narrow street, in a small plaza squeezed between a pachinko parlor and a sketchy convenience store, a commotion was unfolding. 3 men had cornered a fourth. The 3 aggressors were clearly low-level thugs, the kind that infested the margins of society where pro-heroes rarely patrolled. They wore gaudy tracksuits and chains, their postures radiating unearned arrogance. I said, the leader barked, the protection fee has gone up. The heroes are busy with the festival aftermath. That means we have to work overtime to keep this block safe. You understand, right? The leader was a hulking man with skin that looked like rough concrete, a mutation quirk, likely providing enhanced durability. The second thug had fingers that were elongated and twitching, sparking with minor electricity. The third was swinging a baseball bat, his eyes glowing a faint, menacing yellow. The victim was a middle-aged man in a convenience store uniform, trembling so hard his glasses were slipping down his nose. Please, the shopkeeper stammered. I paid last week. I don't have any more cash on the premises. Then we'll take it out in product, the electric thug sneered, reaching out to grab the shopkeeper's collar. Or maybe we'll just break your legs and call it even. Izuku's body moved before his brain gave the order. It was the instinct All Might had seen in him, the inability to ignore a cry for help. He stepped out from behind the vending machine. Stop it! The shout was weaker than he intended. His voice cracked. The 3 thugs turned. The concrete-skinned leader blinked, then burst into laughter. Ha! Who's this? A middle schooler lost his way to the library? Ivy called the police. Izuku lied, his heart hammering against his ribs. He raised his good arm in a shaky defensive stance, trying to hide the cast on his right arm behind his back. Leave him alone. The police won't get here for 20 minutes, the bat-wielding thug grinned. Plenty of time to teach a brat a lesson. Izuku swallowed hard. He couldn't use one for all. Not here. Not with his arm already shattered. If he flicked a finger now, he might lose the hand permanently. But he couldn't run. Think, Midoriya. Analyze. The leader is the tank. The electric one is the speed. The bat is the weapon. If I can dodge the bat, maybe I can trip the single syllable cut through the tension like a blade. It wasn't shouted. It was a deep, gravelly rumble, heavy with an exhaustion that sounded older than the city itself. Every head turned. Walking out of the convenience store the shopkeeper had been guarding was a man. He was tall, towering over Izuku. He wore a distinctive, light gray suit that looked expensive but dated, with the collar of a maroon shirt popped open. His hair was slicked back, defying gravity, and his face was a mask of stoic, chiseled granite. He held a small plastic bag in one hand. He didn't look like a hero. He didn't look like a villain. He looked like a mountain that had decided to wear a suit. You're blocking the entrance, the man said. His voice was calm, almost bored. I'm trying to leave. The concrete thug sneered, puffing out his chest. We're busy here, salaryman. Go back inside before you get hurt. The man in the gray suit sighed. It was a long, weary exhalation. He looked at the plastic bag in his hand, containing a bento box and a bottle of tea, and gently set it down on top of a nearby electrical box. Then, he cracked his neck. Crack. Crack. I really just wanted a quiet dinner, the man muttered. Get him! The leader screamed. The thug with the baseball bat lunged first, swinging the weapon with a quirk-enhanced speed that whistled through the air. Izuku gasped. Look out! What happened next defied everything Izuku understood about fighting. He expected the man to activate a quirk. A barrier, a hardening skin, a super speed dodge. Instead, the man simply stepped. He shifted his weight, pivoting on his heel with fluid precision. The bat missed his nose by a millimeter. In the same motion, the man's fist blurred. It wasn't a whining haymaker. It was a compact, hook-like strike to the thug's gut. The sound was sickening, a wet, heavy thud. The thug's eyes bulged, the bat clattering to the ground as he crumpled, foaming at the mouth. One hit? Izuku's eyes widened. No quirk. That was pure kinetic energy transfer. He hit the solar plexus perfectly. You bastard! The electric finger thug charged, sparks flying. He aimed for the man's face. The man in the gray suit didn't back down. As the electric hand came forward, the man grabbed the thug's wrist. The electricity crackled over the gray suit, but the man didn't even wince. He twisted his hips, using the thug's own momentum to swing him around. But he didn't just throw him. The man dragged the thug toward a row of bicycles parked by the curb. Warg! The man roared, a sudden explosion of vocal aggression, as he lifted a heavy metal bicycle with one hand as if it were made of cardboard. He slammed the bicycle down onto the electric thug. The metal frame crumpled around the villain, trapping him in a tangle of wheels and gears. The concrete leader stared, horrified. What the hell is your quirk? The man straightened his jacket, brushing a speck of dust from his lapel. He looked at the leader with eyes that held the intensity of a dragon. I don't have one, the man said. The silence that followed was absolute. Izuku felt a chill run down his spine. Quirkless? He did that without a quirk? But the strength required to lift that bike one-handed, the durability to ignore the electricity. The concrete thug roared, his skin hardening further until he looked like a walking boulder. Don't screw with me. No normal human moves like that. He charged, the ground shaking with each step. He drew back a fist the size of a cinder block. The man in the gray suit didn't assume a traditional martial arts stance. He widened his legs, hunched his shoulders slightly, and raised his fists in a rough, brawling guard. A faint, almost hallucinated aura seemed to shimmer around him, a ghostly blue flame that wasn't heat, but pure fighting spirit. The concrete fist came down. The man didn't dodge. He executed a movement Izuku had never seen. He stepped into the guard of the giant, dropping his level. His right fist traveled a short distance, driving upward like a piston. It connected with the underside of the giant's jaw, the tiger drop. Though Izuku didn't know the name yet, the impact created a shockwave that rattled the windows of the convenience store. The concrete leader's head snapped back. His massive, hardened body was lifted inches off the ground by the sheer force of the counterattack. The giant hit the pavement flat on his back, unconscious before he landed. The fight had lasted less than 30 seconds. The man stood over the unconscious bodies. He didn't gloat. He didn't strike a pose for the cameras. He simply walked back to the electrical box, picked up his plastic bag, and checked to see if his tea had spilled. "You!" The shopkeeper squeaked from the ground. "Thank you? Are you a pro hero?" The man looked tired. "No. Just a civilian." He turned his gaze toward Izuku. Izuku froze. Those eyes were terrifying. They were the eyes of someone who had seen too much death, too much betrayal, yet remained standing. "Kid," the man said. His voice was rougher now. "You got a death wish? Trying to fight 3 guys with a broken wing?" Izuku looked down at his cast. I couldn't just watch." The man studied him for a long moment. His expression softened, just a fraction. "Heart's in the right place. But guts without skill just gets you killed. Go home. It's late." The man turned and began to walk away, his gray suit blending into the shadows of the alleyway. Izuku stood there, his mind racing. He was trembling, but not from fear. He was trembling from revelation. He didn't hurt himself. The thought looped in Izuku's brain. He fought 3 quirk-enhanced villains. He hit them with enough force to shatter concrete. He took hits. And he didn't break a single bone. He used the environment. He used their momentum. He controlled the space. It was the opposite of how Izuku fought. Izuku fought like a cannon, all power, one shot, massive recoil. This man fought like water. Like a storm. "Wait!" Izuku ran. He ignored the pain in his legs, sprinting after the gray suit. The man didn't stop. He kept walking, turning a corner into a narrower, dimmer alley lined with trash bags and empty beer crates. "Please wait!" Izuku rounded the corner, breathless. The man stopped and turned around slowly. He pulled a pack of cigarettes from his pocket, tapping one out but not lighting it. "I told you to go home, kid. I'm not looking for trouble, and I'm not signing autographs." "I don't want an autograph," Izuku panted, clutching his cast to his chest. He looked up at the stranger, his green eyes burning with desperation. "I want you to teach me." The man blinked. "Ha! I saw what you did," Izuku said, the words spilling out in a rush. "You don't have a quirk. You said it yourself. But you took down a durability type and a speed type in seconds. You didn't just overpower them, you dismantled them. You used the bicycle. You used the counterforce. So?" The man grunted. "Street Fighting 101. Use what you got." "I have a quirk," Izuku admitted. "But it hurts me. Every time I use it at full power, I break my bones. My body can't handle the energy yet. I'm like a glass cannon. If I keep fighting the way I am, my career will be over before it starts." He took a step closer, bowing deeply, his forehead nearly touching his knees. "Please! Teach me how to fight without breaking. Teach me how to use my surroundings. Teach me, whatever that style was." The man stared at the boy. He took a slow breath, putting the unlit cigarette back in the pack. "My name is Kiryu," the man said. "Kazuma Kiryu." Izuku looked up. "I'm Izuku Midoriya." Kiryu scratched the back of his head, looking annoyed. "Listen, Midoriya. I'm not a sensei. I'm not a trainer. I'm barely a tourist. I'm just here to visit an old acquaintance's grave, and then I'm heading back to Okinawa. I run an orphanage. I look after kids. I don't train them to beat people up." "But, no buts," Kiryu said firmly. "Fighting isn't something you should aspire to. It's a last resort. If you have a quirk that hurts you, maybe the universe is telling you to find a different job. Be a policeman. Be a doctor." "I can't." Izuku cried out. I have to be a hero. There are people counting on me. I was given this power by someone very important. I can't let him down. I can't let the world down, but I don't know how to use it without destroying the vessel. Kiryu paused. He looked at the boy's eyes. He saw something familiar there. A stubbornness. A refusal to stay down. It reminded him of a certain young girl he had raised. It reminded him of himself, 20 years ago, carrying the weight of the Dojima family on his back. Kiryu sighed, rubbing his temples. Why does this always happen to me? I come to a new city, I try to lay low, and I end up getting involved in someone's drama. You're Yue, aren't you? Kiryu asked, pointing at the gym pants Izuku was wearing. Why yes, the sports festival kid. The one who broke his fingers on live TV. Izuku flinched. Yes. Kiryu looked at the bandaged hand. Then he looked around the alleyway. I'm not going to train you, Kiryu said. Izuku's shoulders slumped. I understand. I'm sorry for bothering, but Kiryu interrupted. I'm going to be in town for a week. I'm staying at a cheap hotel near the station. If you want to make yourself useful, meet me here tomorrow morning at 6 a.m. Don't wear the school uniform. Wear something you don't mind getting dirty. Izuku's head snapped up, hope igniting in his chest. Does that mean? It means I need someone to help me carry some stuff, Kiryu grumbled, turning away. Don't read into it. And bring me a Stamina X if you can find one. They don't sell them in these fancy hero stores. Yes. Yes, sir. Thank you, Kiryu-san. Kiryu waved a dismissive hand over his shoulder as he walked away. Go home, kid. Izuku stood in the alleyway for a long time after Kiryu had vanished. The smell of trash was still pungent, the neon lights still buzzed, but the weight in his chest felt lighter. He looked at his cast. He imagined lifting a bicycle not with the smashing power of One for All, but with the leverage and technique Kiryu had used. He imagined flowing through a fight like water, the dragon of Dojima, Izuku thought, though he didn't know the title yet. I found a dragon in the alleyway. The next morning, Izuku did not sleep well. His mind was a whirlpool of analysis. He had filled 3 pages of his hero analysis for the Future Notebook, Volume 14, with sketches of Kiryu's movements. Entry: The Gray Suit Man, Kiryu-san. Quirk: None claims. Fighting style: Brawler? Rush? Heavy usage of grappling and environmental improvisation. Shows extreme situational awareness. Notable feat: defeated giant villain with a counterpunch that utilized the opponent's momentum. Kinetic reflection? At 5:45 a.m., Izuku was back in the alleyway. He was wearing an old green tracksuit and worn-out sneakers. He held a plastic bag containing 2 bottles of a drink called Stamina X which he had miraculously found in a shady import store the night before. It looked like radioactive energy sludge. At 6 a.m. sharp, Kiryu appeared. He looked exactly the same as the night before, same gray suit, same maroon shirt. Izuku wondered if he slept in it. You came, Kiryu said, sounding mildly disappointed. Good morning, Kiryu-san. Izuku bowed. Here are the drinks you asked for. Kiryu took the bottle, cracked the cap, and downed the entire contents in one gulp. A weird golden aura seemed to flare around him for a split second, and he sighed with satisfaction. Needed that. Good work. So, what are we doing? Sparring? Kata? Endurance training? Izuku asked, bouncing on his heels. Kiryu looked at him. We're cleaning. Cleaning? Kiryu gestured to the end of the alley. It was a dead end, piled high with illegal dumping. Broken refrigerators, rusted car parts, bags of cement, old sofas. It was a mountain of refuse that the city services had ignored. This is an eyesore, Kiryu said. And it's blocking the path to the shrine behind it. We're going to move it. Izuku stared at the pile. All of it? All of it, Kiryu said. He walked over to a rusted washing machine. Watch. He didn't just grab it. He squatted deep, wedging his shoulder under the rim. He checked his footing. You heroes, Kiryu said, straining as he lifted the machine, you think strength is about numbers, percentages. You think if you punch hard enough, the problem goes away. He hauled the machine up, pivoting and setting it down neatly by the curb for collection. But in a street fight, strength is about leverage. It's about structure. If your structure is weak, your power leaks out. That's why your bones break, Midoriya. You're firing a cannon from a canoe. Izuku's eyes widened. A cannon, from a canoe. Your body is the canoe, Kiryu said, wiping his hands. You have too much gunpowder and not enough hull. Until you build the hull, you have to stop firing the cannon. You have to use the canoe itself as the weapon. He pointed to a stack of heavy industrial tires. Move those. Don't use your quirk. If I see glowing veins, we're done. Yes, sir. For the next 4 hours, Izuku learned the meaning of misery. Without one for all, he was a fit, but average, teenager. The tires were heavy. The scrap metal was sharp. The old sofas were waterlogged and impossibly awkward to carry. Kiryu worked alongside him, but he made it look effortless. He moved with a rhythm. Lift, twist, step, drop. Lift, twist, step, drop. Don't lift with your back. Kiryu barked, seeing Izuku struggle with a car engine block. Use your hips. Your power comes from the ground, through your legs, into your hips. Your arms are just the delivery system. Izuku gritted his teeth, adjusting his stance. He widened his legs. He imagined the energy flowing not from his chest, but from the asphalt. He grabbed the engine block. Hips. Legs. Drive. He heaved. The engine block rose. It was heavy, agonizingly so, but his back didn't scream. Good, Kiryu said. Now throw it. What? Throw it. Over there. Kiryu pointed to a designated pile 10 feet away. I can't throw an engine block 10 feet without. Don't throw it with your arms, Kiryu interrupted, lighting a cigarette. Throw it with your rotation. Spin. Izuku held the heavy block to his chest. He felt ridiculous. He looked at Kiryu, who was watching him with impassive eyes. Rotation. Torque. Izuku twisted his body to the left, winding up like a spring. Then he uncoiled. He drove his right foot into the ground, snapped his hips forward, and let the momentum travel up his spine. He released the block. It didn't go 10 feet. It went about 6. But it flew. And more importantly, Izuku didn't feel the strain in his shoulders. He felt it in his core. Better, Kiryu grunted. Again. By noon, the alley was clear. Izuku lay on the ground, gasping for air. His uniform was ruined, covered in grease and dust. His cast was scuffed, but he felt a strange, burning warmth in his muscles, not the sharp pain of injury, but the dull ache of growth. Kiryu stood over him, holding 2 convenience store onigiri. He tossed one onto Izuku's chest. Eat. You need fuel. Izuku peeled the wrapper with shaking fingers. Kiryu-san, was that the brawler style? Kiryu sat down on a clean crate, chewing his rice ball. It's just lifting trash, kid. Don't give it a fancy name. But the way you move, Izuku insisted, sitting up. It's efficient. You never waste energy. When I fight, I'm always thinking about my quirk. How much percentage? Where do I aim? But you just react. Thinking is slow, Kiryu said. In a fight, if you think, you lose. You have to let your body do the work. You have to enter the heat of the moment. Heat? Izuku asked. Kiryu tapped his own chest. It's not a quirk. It's focus. It's the point where your spirit boils over, and everything slows down. When you're in that state, you can do things you shouldn't be able to do. Lift bikes. Dodge bullets. Survive. He looked at Izuku seriously. You're afraid of your power, Midoriya. I can see it. You treat it like a bomb you're carrying. As long as you're afraid of it, it will keep hurting you. How do I stop being afraid? Izuku asked quietly. Kiryu stood up. By learning that you don't need it to win. Stand up. Izuku stood, his legs wobbling. Kiryu took off his suit jacket, folding it neatly and placing it on the crate. He rolled up the sleeves of his maroon shirt, revealing forearms that were thick with muscle. On his back, through the fabric of the shirt, Izuku could faintly trace the outline of a massive tattoo, though he couldn't see what it was. Hit me, Kiryu said. What? Come at me. Use your quirk. Just keep it low. 5%. Can you do that? I think so. I can maintain 5% across my whole body. I call it full cowling. Full calling, Kiryu repeated, testing the word. Sounds flashy. Show me. Izuku took a deep breath. He closed his eyes. He felt the ember of one for all. Usually, he let it roar into a bonfire. This time, he kept it small. He let it spread through his veins like a gentle stream. Green lightning crackled around him, lifting his hair. Here I come! Izuku dashed forward. He was fast. To a normal human, he would be a blur. He aimed a punch at Kiryu's chest. Kiryu didn't move his feet. He swayed his upper body to the left. Izuku's fist passed through empty air. Izuku pivoted, swinging a kick. Kiryu raised a forearm, blocking the shin with a dull thud. The impact shook Izuku's bones, but Kiryu didn't budge. Too wide, Kiryu criticized. You're telegraphing. You wind up before you strike. Anyone with street experience will read you like a book. Izuku gritted his teeth and unleashed a flurry of jabs. Smash! Smash! Kiryu began to weave. He moved with a bob and weave pattern that was mesmerizing. He slipped under a right hook, parried a left, and then slapped Izuku's guard aside. He's so fast. Izuku thought. He's not using speed enhancement. He's just moving efficiently. You're relying on your eyes, Kiryu said, dodging another punch. Don't look at my fists. Look at my shoulders. Look at my hips. That's where the movement starts. Izuku tried to adjust. He focused on Kiryu's center. He saw the shoulder dip. A right hook. Izuku ducked. Wham! Kiryu had feinted the hook and swept Izuku's legs. Izuku hit the pavement hard. Ow! And you have no ground game, Kiryu noted, offering a hand to pull him up. You heroes are obsessed with standing tall. But in the gutter, fights end on the ground. You need to learn how to scramble. Izuku took the hand. Kiryu's grip was like iron. Again, Kiryu said. They sparred for an hour. Izuku didn't land a single clean hit. He was thrown, swept, and gently shoved into walls. But with every failure, his analysis kicked in. He started to see the pattern. Kiryu used a style that was a hybrid of boxing, judo, and pure street brawling. It was the Komaki style, though Izuku didn't know that yet. It was built on 3 pillars: parry, tiger drop, and knockback. Stop, Kiryu said, raising a hand. Izuku stopped, panting heavily. The green lightning faded. You adapt fast, Kiryu said, sounding impressed. Toward the end there, you stopped flinching. You started watching my feet. I tried to copy your sway, Izuku gasped. It's called the rush style, Kiryu said. Speed over power. For someone your size, against bigger opponents, it's essential. You can't trade blows with a tank. You have to sting and move. Kiryu put his jacket back on. The sun was beginning to set, casting long orange shadows down the clean alleyway. That's enough for today. I have business to attend to tonight. Business? Izuku asked. Kiryu's eyes darkened slightly. Grown-up business. Don't worry about it. In reality, Kiryu was going to play pocket circuit racing at a local hobby shop, but he wasn't going to tell the kid that. Meet me here tomorrow, Kiryu said. Same time. We're going to work on your full cowling. It's sloppy. You're leaking energy everywhere. Yes, sensei. Izuku bowed enthusiastically. Don't call me sensei, Kiryu groaned. Just Kiryu is fine. Yes, Kiryu-san. As Kiryu walked away toward the neon lights of the evening district, Izuku looked at his hands. They were trembling, but not from pain. He clenched his fist. For the first time since the sports festival, he didn't feel broken. He felt like he was being forged. All Might taught me how to be a symbol of peace, Izuku thought, watching the dragon of Dojima disappear into the crowd. But Kiryu-san, he's going to teach me how to survive the war. Izuku turned and began the jog home. He needed to update his notes. He had a new entry to add. Lesson 1. The world is your weapon. The canoe must be strong. And never, ever underestimate a man in a gray suit. The morning sun over Mizurufu was usually a symbol of hope, a shining beacon that reflected off the glass towers of hero agencies and warmed the pavement where children played All Might vs. Toxic Chainsaw. But to Izuku Midoriya, as he limped down the street at 5:45 a.m., the sun felt more like a judgmental spotlight. His body was a map of aches. The previous day's impromptu lesson with the man named Kazuma Kiryu had awakened muscles Izuku didn't know existed. His calves burned from the endless squat lifting, his forearms felt like lead pipes. And his mind was still reeling. He moved so efficiently, Izuku thought, clutching the strap of his yellow backpack. Inside, nestled between his hero notebooks and a change of clothes, were 2 bottles of Stamina X he had managed to procure from a shady import store in the ward's underbelly. The clerk had looked at him with pity, as if assuming the scrawny teenager was about to embark on a 24-hour cram session or a Yakuza initiation. In a way, he was doing both. Izuku turned the corner toward the alleyway where he had met Kiryu. He expected to see the stoic man in the gray suit waiting, perhaps smoking a cigarette, perhaps meditating on the nature of violence. Instead, he found an empty alley. The trash they had cleared yesterday was gone, collected by the city's sanitation department, a minor miracle in this district. The pavement was bare. A stray cat sat on a crate, licking its paw, but there was no sign of the dragon of Dojima. "Kiryu-san?" Izuku called out tentatively. Silence. Panic flared in Izuku's chest. Did he leave? Was yesterday just a whim? Did he realize I'm not worth the trouble? Maybe he went back to Okinawa early. His spiral of self-doubt was interrupted by a sound from the main street, a deep, rumbling voice that sounded like tectonic plates shifting. "I understand your distress, ma'am. But crying will not bring him back. We need a plan." Izuku peeked around the corner. There, in front of a vending machine, crouched Kazuma Kiryu. He was still wearing the same gray suit and maroon shirt, looking as immaculate as if he'd just stepped out of a dry cleaner's, despite likely sleeping in a cheap hotel. He was currently kneeling on the pavement, eye level with a tearful little girl who couldn't have been more than 6 years old. The girl was sobbing, clutching a ragged piece of paper with a drawing on it. But Mikan is gone. He ran away because of the bad man with the loud car." Kiryu nodded solemnly, his expression as grave as if he were discussing a Tojo clan turf war. "A loud car. I see. Noise pollution is a scourge on this city. Do not worry. A man's word is his bond. I will retrieve Mikan." "Really?" The girl sniffled. "Really?" Kiryu said. He stood up, unfolding to his full, intimidating height. He looked around, scanning the rooftops with the intensity of a sniper. Izuku walked over, bewildered. Good morning, Kiryu-san." Kiryu glanced down. "Oh. Midoriya. Good timing. Is everything okay?" Izuku asked, looking from the giant ex-Yakuza to the tiny girl. "We have a situation," Kiryu said, his voice dropping to a confidential rumble. "This young lady has lost her associate. Name Mikan. Species feline. Description, orange tabby, missing half a left ear, answers to the sound of a can opening." Izuku blinked. "A lost cat?" "Not just a cat," Kiryu corrected sternly. "Family. When family is missing, you don't sleep. You don't eat. You find them." The intensity in Kiryu's eyes was terrifying. For a moment, Izuku wondered if Mikan was actually a code name for a missing Yakuza lieutenant. But looking at the crayon drawing in the girl's hand, a blob of orange with stick legs, it was definitely a cat. I can help," Izuku offered instinctively. "I mean, if we're looking for a cat, I have experience with tracking, sort of. I analyze hero patrol routes, so maybe I can analyze the cat's path?" Kiryu looked at him, then nodded. "Analytical support. Good. I'm better at breaking things than finding them. Lead the way, detective." Substory, The Meowing Menace. The search for Mikan took them through the winding back streets of Mizudafu's lower district. It was a surreal experience for Izuku. He was walking alongside a man who radiated an aura of dangerous violence, yet they were stopping every 5 minutes to check under dumpsters and shake a bag of cat-crazy's treats. "Okay," Izuku muttered, tapping a pen against his chin as he stared at a muddy patch of ground near a construction site. If the loud car scared him here, cats usually seek high ground or tight, enclosed spaces when frightened. The soil here is disturbed. Paw prints, heading north. He pointed toward a half-finished apartment complex covered in scaffolding. He probably went up there to feel safe. Kiryu stared at the paw prints. "Impressive. I just saw mud. It's just observation, Izuku stammered, blushing. All Might always says a hero has to keep their eyes open. Humph. All Might, Kiryu grunted, though not unkindly. Your idol? The greatest hero in the world. Izuku beamed. He saves everyone with a smile. He's the symbol of peace. Kiryu lit a cigarette, cupping the flame against the wind. Symbols are heavy things to carry, kid. They tend to crush the people underneath them if they aren't careful. Izuku fell silent. He thought of All Might's emaciated form, the blood he coughed up daily, the secret injury that was slowly killing him. Kiryu doesn't know how right he is. There, Kiryu pointed. High up on the third level of the scaffolding, a flash of orange fur darted behind a stack of steel beams. Mikan! The little girl cried from the ground. They had brought her along, at her insistence. Stay here, Kiryu ordered. He approached the construction site. A sign read, "No trespassing, quirk usage prohibited." Kiryu-san, we can't just go in there, Izuku warned nervously. It's a restricted zone. If a pro-hero sees us, the cat is in danger, Kiryu said simply. He walked up to the fence, which was locked with a heavy chain. Izuku expected him to pick the lock. Or perhaps jump over it. Instead, Kiryu grabbed the chain with both hands. His knuckles turned white. He didn't use a quirk. Izuku checked for the glow. He just pulled. Creak. Snap. The steel link popped open like a twist tie. Izuku's jaw dropped. That was hardened steel. Rust, Kiryu lied smoothly, stepping through the gate. Come on. They climbed the scaffolding. Or rather, Izuku climbed. Kiryu seemed to glide up the ladders with a speed that defied his size. When they reached the third floor, they found Mikan. The cat was hissing, backed into a corner by a group of territorial crows. Hey! Izuku shouted, waving his arms to scare the birds. Shoo! The crows cawed defiantly, dive-bombing toward the cat. Get down, Kiryu murmured. He stepped forward. He didn't punch. He didn't kick. He simply unleashed it. A wave of pure, unfiltered intimidation rolled off him. It wasn't the heroic pressure of All Might, which felt like a warm, protective blanket. This felt like standing in front of a starving tiger. The air grew heavy. The temperature seemed to drop. A faint red aura flickered around Kiryu's shoulders, the manifestation of his heat. The crows froze in midair, their survival instincts screaming at them to flee. They scattered in a panic, squawking as they flew away as fast as their wings could carry them. Mikan the cat froze, staring at Kiryu with wide eyes. The aura vanished instantly. Kiryu crouched down, his face softening into a gentle smile that looked utterly out of place on his rugged features. He held out a hand. Come here, little one. It's safe now. The cat, sensing the change, trotted over and rubbed its head against Kiryu's knuckles. Kiryu scooped it up with a tenderness that made Izuku's chest ache. Mission accomplished, Kiryu said. When they returned the cat to the little girl, she hugged Kiryu's leg, weeping with joy. Thank you, Mr. Giant. Thank you? Kiryu patted her head awkwardly. Don't mention it. Just keep him inside next time. As the girl ran off, waving goodbye, Kiryu turned to Izuku. You did good, Midoriya. You analyzed the track. You spotted the target. That's step one of being useful. Useful? Izuku asked. For what? Kiryu reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a crumpled piece of paper. It was an internship offer form from Yui Academy, the one Izuku had been staring at blankly for days because he had no offers. I found this sticking out of your notebook yesterday while you were cleaning, Kiryu said. You need an internship for next week, right? Why yes, Izuku said, shocked. But I didn't get any offers. Well, except for a few really dangerous agencies that probably just want to use me as a meat shield because of how reckless I was on TV. Reckless is bad, Kiryu agreed. But potential is good. He pulled a pen from his pocket and scribbled something on the form. He handed it back to Izuku. Izuku stared at the paper. Under agency name, Kiryu had written, Kiryu Consulting Orphanage Services, Temporary Musidova Branch. Under Pro Hero Supervisor, he had signed, Kazuma Kiryu, Freelance Consultant. Wait, is this even legal? Izuku squeaked. You're not a pro hero. You don't have a license. I have a business license, Kiryu said with a shrug. and I have connections. I made a phone call to an old friend in the police department, Detective Date. He knows a guy named Sakachi here. Apparently, they worked a joint task force back in the day. It's cleared. Izuku stared at him. He knows Detective Sakachi? All Might's best friend in the force? Who is this man? So, Kiryu said, cracking his knuckles. For the next week, you're not a student. You're my intern. And since I'm a consultant, we solve problems. But before we solve problems, he looked Izuku up and down, frowning at the teenager's scrawny arms. We need to fix the tool. You're broken, Midoriya. And broken tools don't work. The training ground, the scrapyard. They didn't go back to the alley. Kiryu led Izuku further toward the outskirts of the city, to an area near the industrial harbor known as the Overflow Yard. It was a nightmare. Unlike the beautiful, sprawling trash beach that All Might had made him clean, this was a claustrophobic maze of rusted shipping containers, derelict cars, and piles of industrial slag. The ground was uneven, slick with oil and mud. The smell was a mixture of rust, salt, and decay. This, Kiryu said, gesturing to the expanse, is your dojo. It's charming, Izuku lied. It's messy, Kiryu corrected. Just like a fight. A dojo is flat. It has mats. It has rules. The street has none of that. If you trip here, you land on a rusty nail. If you slip, you break an ankle. He walked over to a stack of car tires that reached 10 feet high. Lesson 2, Kiryu announced. The Komaki style isn't just about punching. It's about the essence of the brawler. Do you know what that means? Izuku pulled out his notebook. Utilizing brute force to overwhelm the opponent? Wrong, Kiryu said. He kicked a loose pipe on the ground. It clattered against a metal drum. The brawler creates his own advantage. He reshapes the battlefield. Kiryu walked over to a rusted-out sedan that had no wheels. Watch. He didn't activate a quirk. He simply squatted next to the car's rear bumper. He inhaled deeply through his nose, his chest expanding like a barrel. Then, with a roar that startled a flock of seagulls, he lifted. Greya! The back end of the car rose. Veins bulged on Kiryu's neck. The metal groaned. He wasn't just lifting it, he was shifting it. He pivoted on his heels, dragging the car 3 feet to the left, creating a blockade across a narrow path between two containers. He dropped it with a crash that shook the ground. Now, Kiryu panted slightly, dusting off his hands. The enemy can't flank you. You've created a choke point. Izuku stared, wide-eyed. You used the car as a wall? I used the car as a weapon, Kiryu corrected. In a fight, everything is a weapon. The wall. The floor. The trash. If you are strong enough to move the environment, you control the fight. He pointed to a pile of heavy wooden pallets, industrial piping, and bags of cement. Your job today is to reorganize this section. I want a clear path from here to the water. Move the heavy stuff to the sides to create barriers. Clear the debris from the center. And Midoriya? Yes? No quirks. Izuku looked at the mountain of trash. No quirks? But Kiryu-san, some of that stuff weighs hundreds of kilos. Then you better learn to lift with your legs, Kiryu said, sitting down on a nearby crate and pulling out a pocket circuit racing car he had apparently bought. Get to work. The grind. The next 6 hours were a blur of agony. Without One for All, Izuku was just a boy. A strong boy, thanks to All Might's 10 months of hell, but still just human. He approached a heavy bag of cement. He bent his back. He pulled. Stop! Kiryu's voice cut through the air. Izuku froze. What? Look at your spine, Kiryu scolded, not looking up from his toy car. You're curved like a shrimp. You lift like that, you slip a disc. In a fight, if you compromise your spine, you're dead. Kiryu stood up and walked over. He poked Izuku in the lower back. Lock this. Engage your core. Your power comes from the hara, the center. Drive your heels into the mud. Izuku adjusted. He flattened his back. He tightened his abs until they burned. He grabbed the bag again. Breathe in on the descent, Kiryu instructed. Exhale on the exertion. Ki if you have to. HUP. Izuku drove his heels down. The bag lifted. It felt lighter, not because it weighed less, but because his body was acting as a single, solid unit. Good, Kiryu nodded. Now walk with it. Keep your center of gravity low. If someone tackles you now, you shouldn't fall. Izuku waddled the bag over to the designated pile. This is the foundation of the beast style, Kiryu explained, walking beside him. The beast absorbs impact. The beast is immovable. When you use your quirk, your full cowling, you bounce around like a rabbit. That's fine for speed. But sometimes you need to be a tank. You need to stand your ground so that when you hit them, they break, not you. Hour after hour, they worked. Izuku moved pallets. He dragged rusted beams. He rolled giant spools of wire. Every time his form faltered, Kiryu was there. Not yelling, but correcting. A tap on the shoulder. A nudge of the knee. Wider stance. Shoulders down. Don't look at the ground. Look at the horizon. By early afternoon, Izuku was drenched in sweat. His hands were raw, even through the work gloves Kiryu had given him. But he noticed something strange. He wasn't just tired. He was aware. Because the ground was slippery and uneven, he had to constantly adjust his footing. He had to pay attention to every pebble, every slick of oil. If he didn't, he would fall with a heavy object on top of him. My proprioception is increasing, Izuku realized, wiping grease from his forehead. I'm learning to feel the ground. To predict the shift in weight. Break time, Kiryu announced. He tossed a bento box to Izuku. It was store-bought, but to Izuku, it looked like a gourmet meal. They sat on a shipping container, overlooking the gray ocean. Kiryu-san, Izuku asked between mouthfuls of rice. You keep mentioning styles. Brawler. Beast. Rush. Are these actual martial arts? Kiryu took a sip of his tea. They're not martial arts in the traditional sense. They're mindsets. Adaptations. He held up 3 fingers. Rush is for when you are outmatched in power. You dodge. You weave. You chip away. He folded 1 finger. Beast is for when you are surrounded or fighting in a cluttered environment. You use objects. You tank hits to deliver bigger ones. He folded another. Brawler, that's the soul. That's just you, fighting with everything you have. No fancy tricks. Just guts. Kiryu looked at Izuku. You have the guts, Midoriya. I saw that in the sports festival. But you have no structure. You try to be All Might, but All Might is a beast-style fighter naturally. He's huge. You're small. I know, Izuku whispered. So don't fight like him, Kiryu said bluntly. You need to be fluid. You need to switch. Rush to get in close. Beast to throw them. Brawler to finish it. He stood up and crushed his empty tea can. Now, let's see if you can listen. Get up. Izuku scrambled to his feet. More cleaning? No, Kiryu said. He walked to the center of the cleared space. Now I teach you the Komaki style. The lesson, soft versus hard. The Komaki style was taught to me by an old master, Kiryu began. It focuses on 3 principles: parry, knockback, and counter. He beckoned Izuku. Come at me. Use your quirk. 5%. Izuku activated full cowling. The green lightning returned. He felt the familiar surge of power. I'm going to punch you, Kiryu said calmly. What? I'm going to punch you in the face. Try to stop me. Before Izuku could process this, Kiryu moved. It was a straight right, not fast, but heavy. Izuku threw his arms up in an X block, the standard hero defense. Wham! The force was incredible. Even at 5%, Izuku was knocked backward, his heels skidding in the dirt. His forearms throbbed. Wrong, Kiryu said. You met force with force. My arm is bigger than yours. You lose that trait every time. Then what do I do? Izuku gasped, shaking his arms. Don't block. Parry, Kiryu demonstrated. He moved his hand in a circular motion, slapping the air aside. When the punch comes, you don't stop it. You redirect it. You slap the wrist or the elbow. You push it offline. Just an inch is enough. Try it on me, Kiryu said. Izuku hesitated, then threw a punch. Kiryu's hand flicked out. He didn't grab Izuku. He just slapped the back of Izuku's wrist at the moment of impact. Izuku felt his fist veer to the right. His momentum carried him forward, stumbling past Kiryu. See? Kiryu said. I used almost no energy. You used all of yours, and now your back is exposed. Whoa. Izuku breathed. He pulled out his notebook, which was somehow still on his person, and scribbled furiously. Kamaki parry, redirection of kinetic vector. Minimal effort, maximum disruption. Again Kiryu ordered. For the next hour, they practiced the parry. Izuku got hit in the face a lot. But slowly, he started to see the timing. It wasn't about speed. It was about reading the initiation of the muscle. Watch the shoulder. Watch the hip. Slap the wrist. Eventually, Kiryu threw a jab. Izuku stepped to the side and slapped Kiryu's forearm. The punch missed his ear by a millimeter. Good, Kiryu grunted. Now step 2. The knockback. Knockback? When they are off balance from the parry, they are vulnerable. That is when you strike. But you don't just hit them. You hit them away. Kiryu demonstrated on a punching bag they had rigged up, an old mattress tied to a post. You don't punch the surface, Kiryu explained. You punch through the target. You transfer your mass into them. He hit the mattress. It didn't just indent, it flew off the post. Combine it, Kiryu said. Parry, then immediately counter with a body blow. It's called the Kamaki knockback. Izuku tried. He visualized the flow. Water then stone. Kiryu threw a slow punch. Izuku parried. Success. Izuku stepped in, channeling 5% into his fist, aiming for Kiryu's stomach. Connect. His fist hit Kiryu's abs. It felt like punching a wall of steel. Kiryu didn't move an inch. He looked down at Izuku's fist buried in his gut. Technique was good, Kiryu critiqued. Power needs work. And you hesitated. I didn't want to hurt you, kid, Kiryu sighed. I've taken cannonballs to the chest. You're not going to break me with 5%. The interruption. The sun was beginning to set, painting the scrapyard in hues of orange and purple. All right, cool down, Kiryu said, wiping sweat from his brow. You're learning fast. Your analysis helps. You deconstruct the move before you even try it. Thank you, Kiryu-san. I really feel like... What do we have here? The voice came from the entrance of the yard. Izuku and Kiryu turned. Standing there were 5 men. They weren't the thugs from yesterday. These guys looked more organized. They wore matching leather jackets with a skull emblem on the back. This is private property, the leader said. He had a mutation that gave him spikes protruding from his shoulders. Belongs to the Jagged crew. You're trespassing. Kiryu sighed, a sound of infinite weariness. I checked the registry. This is municipal land. Abandoned. It's ours now, the spiked man sneered. And you moved all our barricades. You ruined our hideout setup. The 5 men stepped forward. 2 of them activated quirks. One grew claws, another started emitting smoke. Izuku tensed, instinctively stepping in front of Kiryu. Kiryu-san! I'll handle. Kiryu put a hand on Izuku's shoulder. No, but, this is part of the training, Kiryu said calmly. Lesson 3, Application. He gestured to the thugs. 5 opponents. Armed. Angry. Environment, cluttered. You tired. Kiryu took a step back and sat on a crate. He pulled out a cigarette. Defeat them. Don't break your bones. Use the style. Izuku stared at him. You want me to fight 5 guys alone? You're a hero, aren't you? Kiryu said, lighting the cigarette. Heroes don't get to choose fair fights. The thugs looked insulted. You think the kid can take us? Get him, they charged. Izuku's heart hammered. Okay. Don't panic. Analyze. 5 targets. Cluttered terrain. He activated full cowling. 5%. Green sparks flew. The first thug claws lunged. Don't block. Parry. Izuku stepped left. He slapped the clawed hand aside. The thug stumbled. Knockback. Izuku drove a fist into the thug's ribs. Bam. The thug wheezed and fell back. Get him. The smoke quirk user blinded Izuku with a cloud of gray smog. Izuku coughed, losing visual. I can't see. Use the environment. Izuku remembered the layout. To his right was the stack of tires. He blindly reached out, grabbed a tire, and spun. Beast style, he swung the heavy tire like a discus. It connected with something solid in the smoke. Oof, the smoke cleared slightly. The smoke user was on the ground, tangled in the tire. You little punk! The spiked leader charged. He was big. He was fast. He tackled Izuku. They hit the mud. Izuku's concentration broke. The full cowling flickered. Ground game! Kiryu's voice echoed in his head. Scramble! Izuku didn't try to punch the spikes. He grabbed the leader's jacket, planted his feet on the man's hips, and pulled. Using the leader's own momentum, he flipped him over his head. Tomo Nage! The leader landed face first in the mud. The last two thugs hesitated. They looked at their fallen leader, then at the glowing green boy. Izuku stood up, panting. He picked up a rusted metal pipe from the ground. He didn't hold it like a sword. He held it like a bat, his stance wide, his shoulders hunched. He looked dangerous. Leave, Izuku said. His voice was deeper than usual. The thugs looked at Kiryu, who was just exhaling a smoke ring. Then they looked back at Izuku. They grabbed their unconscious friends and ran. Post-fight, the Smile Burger. An hour later, they were sitting in a Smile Burger restaurant in the city center. The neon lights outside buzzed. Izuku was devouring a triple cheeseburger. He had never been so hungry in his life. You did okay, Kiryu said, sipping a coffee. Just okay? Izuku asked with a mouthful of fries. You lost focus in the smoke, Kiryu criticized. And you hesitated to use the weapon until the end. If that pipe was a bat, you should have used it immediately to extend your reach. Heroes don't usually use weapons, Izuku mumbled. A hero uses whatever saves the day, Kiryu countered. But your throw was good. And you didn't break anything. Izuku looked at his hands. It was true. His knuckles were bruised, his muscles ached, but his bones were intact. I felt in control, Izuku said softly. Usually, I feel like I'm holding onto a runaway train. But today, I felt like I was driving it. Kiryu smiled. It was a small, rare thing. That's the start, Midoriya. That's the dragon waking up. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a stamped document. Here, Izuku took it. It was his internship form. It had an official UE stamp on it. How? I told you, Kiryu said. Connections. And maybe I intimated the clerk a little bit by staring at him until he stamped it. Kiryu-san, eat your burger, Kiryu laughed. Tomorrow, we go to Hosu. Izuku froze. Hosu? Why Hosu? I have a meeting there, Kiryu said, his face darkening slightly. An old debt to settle. And I heard there's a hero killer running around that city. He looked at Izuku intensely. If you're going to be a hero, you need to see what real evil looks like. Not schoolyard bullies. Not tournament rivals. Real, ideological malice. Izuku swallowed hard. The memory of Ida's vengeful face flashed in his mind. Ida was in Hosu. Yes, Izuku said, clutching the burger wrapper. I need to go to Hosu. Kiryu stood up, tossing a tip on the table. Get some sleep, kid. Tomorrow, the Real training begins. As they walked out of the Smile Burger, Izuku noticed something. The people on the street, the thugs, the punks, the rowdy teens, they parted ways for Kiryu. But they also gave a wide berth to Izuku. He wasn't just a fragile boy from UA anymore. He was walking in the dragon's shadow. And for the first time, he felt like he could cast a shadow of his own. He checked his phone. A message from Uraraka. Good luck with the internship, Deku-kun. Try not to break anything. Izuku typed back. I won't. I'm learning how to be unbreakable. He hit send, then hurried to catch up with the gray suit disappearing into the night. The overflow yard smelled of salt, rust, and the lingering ozone of a quirk pushed to its breaking point. It was the third day of the internship. The sky was a bruised purple, the sun struggling to rise over the horizon of shipping containers that lined the Muzurufu harbor. To the casual observer, the yard was a graveyard for industry, a place where the city dumped what it no longer needed. To Izuku Midoriya, it had become a crucible. Thwack. Izuku's fist connected with the heavy industrial tire hanging from a crane hook. The tire swung back lazily. Thwack. Another hit. Technically perfect form. Hips rotated, shoulder driven forward, wrist locked. But Kazuma Kiryu, sitting on a stack of wooden pallets 10 feet away, didn't look impressed. He held a can of Boss coffee in one hand and a lit cigarette in the other, watching the smoke curl into the damp morning air. "Stop," Kiryu said. The command was quiet, barely rising above the cry of the seagulls, but Izuku froze instantly. He dropped his hands, his chest heaving. Sweat dripped from his nose onto the muddy ground. "What is it, Kiryu-san? Is my stance too narrow again?" Izuku asked, wiping his forehead with a grime-stained sleeve. "I tried to keep my center of gravity low, like you said with the beast-style practice yesterday." "Your stance is fine," Kiryu said, taking a sip of coffee. "Your fist is fine. Your spirit is trash." Izuku flinched as if he'd been slapped. "My spirit?" Kiryu stood up. He wore the same gray suit, though he had discarded the jacket, revealing the maroon shirt rolled up to his elbows. He walked over to the tire. "Hit it again," Kiryu ordered. "Full power. Or whatever percentage you think is safe." Izuku nodded. He closed his eyes for a second, summoning the sensation of one for all. The red veins glowed on his skin. Green lightning crackled around his arm. 5%. Full cowling. He pulled his arm back. He visualized the smash. He drove his fist forward. Just before impact, a microsecond before skin met rubber, Izuku's eyes widened slightly. His muscles seized. The lightning flickered. Thump. The tire barely moved. "See?" Kiryu said, exhaling a cloud of smoke. "You pulled it." I didn't mean to," Izuku stammered, looking at his hand. "It just happens. My body remembers the pain. Every time I wind up, I expect my bones to snap." "The body is honest," Kiryu said, placing a hand on the tire to steady it. "It knows you're afraid. You're fighting with the brakes on, Midoriya. You're driving a sports car, but you're stomping the gas and the brake at the same time. You're going to burn out the engine before you even get off the starting line." Izuku looked down. "But if I don't brake, I break myself. Recovery girl said she wouldn't heal me again. If I shatter my arm now, my career is over. I can't be the symbol of peace if I'm in a cast." Kiryu studied the boy. He saw the genuine terror in those green eyes. It wasn't cowardice, it was trauma. The kid had spent his short hero career treating his body like disposable ammunition. "Come here," Kiryu said, walking back to the pallets. He sat down and patted the space next to him. Izuku sat, feeling small next to the imposing man. "Tell me," Kiryu said, crushing the empty coffee can in his hand effortlessly. "How do you visualize this power of yours? This one for all? Visualize?" Izuku blinked. Well, originally, I imagined an egg in a microwave. If I didn't let the heat out, the egg would explode, so I had to imagine lowering the wattage so the egg would cook without bursting." Kiryu stared at him. A long, baffled silence stretched between them. "An egg," Kiryu repeated flatly. "In a microwave. Why yes." Kiryu sighed, rubbing his temples. "Kid, that is the most uninspiring thing I have ever heard. No wonder you're exploding. Microwaves don't have soul. They just vibrate things until they get hot." He turned to face Izuku fully. "Listen to me. Power isn't electricity. It isn't a microwave. It's heat." "Heat?" Izuku tilted his head. "Like thermal energy?" "No," Kiryu said, his voice dropping an octave, becoming serious. "I'm talking about the fire in your gut. When you fight, there's a moment, if you're doing it right, where the world slows down. The noise fades. You don't feel pain. You only feel the drive to protect, or to win, or to survive. That feeling, that pressure building up inside you, that is heat." Kiryu held up his fist. Suddenly, the air around him seemed to warp. A faint, blue aura flared around his shoulders. It wasn't a quirk, it was sheer, tangible intimidation and willpower manifest. "When I fight," Kiryu continued, the blue aura flickering like a flame, "I don't try to hold the power back. I let it fill the container. I let it simmer. If you cap a boiling kettle, it explodes. But if you let the steam rise, it becomes a whistle. It becomes a signal." He looked at Izuku. "You're trying to cap the kettle, Midoriya. You're trying to suppress the power because you think it's too big for you. Stop suppressing it. Let it flow. Don't trap it in your arm." Let it cover you. Wear it like a suit. Wear it. Izuku mumbled. Full cowling. I've been doing that, spreading the 5% throughout my body. But he's right. I'm still tense. I'm holding the energy tight against my skin because I'm scared it'll leak out and hurt someone. Don't think about eggs, Kiryu commanded. Think about water. Or fire. Something that moves. Energy has to move. If it stops, it builds pressure. If it flows, it has direction. He stood up and walked to the center of the clearing. Show me your full cowling again. But this time, don't think about percentages. Don't think about limits. Just let the heat simmer. Keep it moving. Izuku stood up. He shook out his arms. He closed his eyes. Not an egg. Not a microwave. He thought about the blue aura he saw around Kiryu. He thought about the ocean behind them, vast, heavy, but fluid. Let it flow. Don't hold it in. Let it cycle, one for all. Izuku whispered. Green sparks ignited. But instead of the sharp, erratic crackle that usually accompanied his activation, the light seemed to hum. It covered his legs, his torso, his arms. He didn't clench his muscles to hold it in. He relaxed, letting the energy circulate. Better, Kiryu noted. You look less like you're constipated and more like you're ready to fight. It feels lighter, Izuku admitted, looking at his glowing hands. Usually, maintaining 5% feels like holding a heavy weight. Right now, it feels like adrenaline. That's the heat, Kiryu said. Now, let's see if you can use it. The lesson of the willow. Kiryu didn't assume a fighting stance. He stood casually, arms hanging by his sides, chin slightly tucked. It was a deceptive posture, the stance of a man who could move in any direction instantly. The Komaki style, Kiryu began, his voice echoing in the quiet yard, is built on the idea that soft overcomes hard. You are strong, Midoriya. Even without your quirk, you built good muscle. With your quirk, you have the striking power of a cannon. But a cannon is useless if it can't hit the target. My aim is okay. Izuku ventured. Your aim is static, Kiryu corrected. You aim at where the target is. You need to aim at where the target will be. And more importantly, you need to not be where the target aims. He beckoned with 2 fingers. Attack me? Izuku hesitated. You don't have a quirk, Kiryu-san. If I hit you with full cowling. If, Kiryu said dryly. Big if. Just come. Izuku grit his teeth. Don't underestimate him. He took down that giant villain in the alley. He dashed forward. The gravel crunched under his sneakers. He was fast, much faster than a normal human. He aimed a right straight at Kiryu's chest. Kiryu didn't block. He didn't duck. At the last possible second, Kiryu's left hand flicked up. He slapped the inside of Izuku's wrist. It was a light tap, barely a touch, but the angle was perfect. Izuku's punch was redirected across Kiryu's chest. His own momentum carried him forward. As Izuku stumbled past, Kiryu extended his right leg. He hooked it around Izuku's ankle. Trip. Wah! Izuku face-planted into the mud. Too linear, Kiryu said, looking down at him. You run in straight lines. A straight line is the easiest thing in the world to deflect. Izuku scrambled up, wiping mud from his chin. He was annoyed. Again, he charged again. This time, he feinted a right, then swung a left hook. Kiryu stepped into the swing. He placed his hand on Izuku's shoulder and pushed gently while simultaneously stepping around him. Izuku spun like a top, completely losing his orientation. He ended up punching the air and nearly falling over. You're telegraphing, Kiryu critiqued. I can see your muscles tensing before you move. You decide to punch, then you punch. It needs to be simultaneous. How do I do that? Izuku panted, frustration bubbling in his chest. Stop thinking, Kiryu said. I can see your brain working, Midoriya. If I step here, then I punch there. It's too slow. Fight with your reflexes. Fight with the heat. But I have to analyze. Izuku argued. That's how I win. I figure out the opponent's quirk and analysis is for before the fight, Kiryu cut him off. Or for the breaks. In the exchange? There is no time for math. There is only rhythm. Kiryu took off his shoes and tossed them aside. He stood in his socks on the dirt. I'm going to teach you the komaki parry. It's the foundation of defense. You don't stop the force. You guide it. He held up his hands, palms open. Throw a punch. Slow motion. Izuku complied. He extended his arms slowly. Watch my hands, Kiryu said. As Izuku's fist approached, Kiryu's hand met it. But he didn't push back. He matched the speed of the fist, made contact, and then curved his hand outward. I match your vector, Kiryu explained. Then I change the angle by 5 degrees. That's all it takes. 5 degrees, and you miss my face and hit the air. Vector redirection. Izuku muttered, his eyes lighting up. Like Uraraka-san's zero gravity removes the weight, this removes the directionality of the kinetic force. Sure, whatever, Kiryu grunted. Now do it to me. Kiryu threw a slow punch. Izuku tried to slap it away. He hit Kiryu's forearm too hard. Smack. Ow, Kiryu deadpanned. You're slapping. Don't slap. Guide. Like you're petting that cat we found. Petting the cat. Soft hands, Kiryu said. Iron wrists. Try again. The sub-story. The Papo Mart incident. By noon, the intensity of the training had left Izuku famished. His stomach growled loudly enough to interrupt Kiryu's explanation of the essence of face grading, which Kiryu decided to skip for now, deeming it too brutal for a hero student. Lunch, Kiryu decided. They walked to a nearby convenience store, a Papo Mart on the edge of the industrial district. You heroes eat weird stuff, Kiryu noted as Izuku grabbed a protein jelly and a calorie-mate bar. Kiryu's basket contained a bento box, a bottle of tea, and a copy of Weekly Shonen Jump. It's efficient, Izuku defended. Food is fuel for the soul, not just the muscles, Kiryu lectured, adding a skewed limited edition steamed bun to his pile. As they stood at the counter, the automatic doors slid open. A man walked in. He was wearing a mask and holding a kitchen knife. Put the money in the bag. The robber shouted, his voice shaking. The clerk, a teenager who looked bored out of his mind, sighed. Sir, please don't. The manager takes it out of my paycheck. I said put the money in. The robber turned and saw Kiryu. Kiryu was standing behind Izuku, reading the Jump magazine. He looked up slowly. His expression was one of mild annoyance that his lunch purchase was being delayed. Hey, the robber shouted, waving the knife. You too. Hands up. Wallets on the floor. Izuku tensed. He started to reach for his quirk. I have to save everyone. Small space. Civilian nearby. I should use 2% to disarm him quickly. Kiryu placed a heavy hand on Izuku's shoulder, keeping him grounded. Kiryu-san? Izuku whispered. Kiryu folded the magazine calmly. He stepped forward, placing himself between the knife and Izuku. You're blocking the line, Kiryu said. His voice was a low rumble. I'll cut you, old man. The robber screamed, lunging. Izuku gasped. Look out! Kiryu didn't move his feet. As the knife thrust came toward his stomach, Kiryu's left hand moved. It was the komaki parry. He caught the robber's wrist, not with a grip, but with a guiding touch. He redirected the knife downward and to the right. The robber's momentum carried him forward. In the same motion, Kiryu raised the magazine in his right hand and brought it down on top of the robber's head. Whack! It wasn't a lethal blow. It was a scolding one. The robber stumbled, dropping the knife. He looked up, dazed. Kiryu loomed over him. The blue aura flared for a split second, a terrifying flash of the dragon. Get out, Kiryu said. The robber scrambled backward, slipping on the linoleum floor, and bolted out the door. Sorry about that, Kiryu said to the clerk. Can I get a heat-up for this bento? Izuku stared at Kiryu's back. He did it again. No quirk. Just absolute control of space and psychology. He didn't even wrinkle his shirt. That was amazing, Kiryu-san. Izuku said as they sat on the curb outside eating. You neutralized him without hurting him. That's the essence of hero work. It's the essence of not wanting to deal with police paperwork, Kiryu corrected, chewing a meat bun. If I broke his arm, we'd be here all day answering questions. Control isn't just about fighting, Midoriya. It's about controlling the consequences of the fight. He pointed a chopstick at Izuku. You break your bones because you don't care about the consequences to yourself. You only care about the victory. But if you destroy yourself, who protects the city tomorrow? Izuku stopped eating. The words sank deep. All Might destroys himself, Izuku whispered. He gives everything. And look at him, Kiryu said softly. I've seen him on the news. He smiles, but he looks like a man walking on a razor's edge. Do you want to be a symbol that burns out? Or do you want to be a man who can carry the burden for a lifetime? Kiryu stood up, crumpling his trash. I'm not training you to be a symbol, Midoriya. I'm training you to be a survivor. Now, finish your jelly. We have work to do, the breakthrough, rush style. Back at the yard, the sun began to dip, casting long, orange shadows across the metal wasteland. Jacket off, Kiryu announced. He draped his gray suit jacket over a rusty bollard. He rolled up his sleeves further. For the first time, Izuku got a clear look at the tattoo on Kiryu's back through the translucent fabric of his white undershirt. It was dark, intricate ink. A dragon. Ascending. No more slow motion, Kiryu said. He cracked his neck. Crack. Crack. I want you to hit me. For real. If you hold back, I'm going to throw you into the harbor. Kiryu-san, go! Kiryu didn't wait. He launched himself at Izuku. This wasn't the slow, instructional sparring from earlier. This was speed. Kiryu moved with a bob and weave style that was hypnotic. He was a blur of gray and maroon. Izuku activated full cowling. 5%. He dodged a left hook. Whoosh. The wind from the punch stung his cheek. He tried to counter with a jab. Kiryu slipped it effortlessly and tapped Izuku's ribs. It wasn't a hard hit, but it winded him. Too slow. You're thinking again. Kiryu shouted, dancing back. Don't predict. React. Izuku gritted his teeth. I can't hit him. He's quirkless, but his reaction time is superhuman. How does he move like that? Kiryu came in again. A flurry of punches. Jab jab hook. Izuku blocked the first two, but the hook caught his shoulder. He stumbled back. Is that it? Kiryu taunted. Is that the power of one for all? All that energy, and you can't land a touch on a washed-up Yakuza? Something snapped in Izuku. Not a bone. A mental barrier. Frustration boiled over. The heat in his gut flared. Stop thinking. Stop analyzing vectors. Stop worrying about the egg. Just flow. Izuku closed his eyes for a fraction of a second. He felt the energy coursing through him. Instead of pushing it out, he pulled it in tight. He visualized the blue aura around Kiryu. Be like water. Be like the dragon. When he opened his eyes, the world looked different. The 5% wasn't a static buzzing anymore. It was a current. Kiryu lunged. A straight right. Izuku didn't step back. He stepped in. He dipped his head to the left, letting Kiryu's fist pass over his shoulder. In the same motion, his legs pumped. He entered Kiryu's guard. Rush style. Izuku unleashed a flurry. Left right left. They were fast. Faster than he'd ever moved. Because he wasn't winding up. He was firing from the hip, using the torque of his waist. Kiryu's eyes widened. He parried the first two, but the third, a snap jab, grazed his cheek. Kiryu stepped back, wiping a tiny speck of blood from his cheekbone. The yard went silent. Izuku stood there, panting. Green lightning flowed around him like liquid, no longer jagged, but smooth. His stance was different. He was bouncing on the balls of his feet, his hands low and loose. Izuku stared at his hands. I didn't think about the percentage. I just moved. Kiryu looked at the blood on his thumb. A slow, terrifying grin spread across his face. Finally, Kiryu said. The engine is running. He assumed a fighting stance again, but this time, the blue heat aura flared visibly around him, shaking the dust on the ground. Now we can actually train. The dance of dragons. For the next hour, the scrapyard became a blur of blue and green light. It wasn't a beatdown anymore. It was a conversation. Kiryu attacked. Izuku dodged. Izuku countered. Kiryu parried. They moved through the maze of shipping containers. Izuku used his quirk not just to punch, but to maneuver. He kicked off walls, vaulted over crates, using the environment to create angles. Kiryu-san calls this the rush style, Izuku thought as he slid under a swinging pipe. It's about evasion. Precision. Chipping away at the opponent until they crack. Kiryu was relentless. He threw crates. He kicked barrels. He forced Izuku to be aware of every inch of the battlefield. Don't get cornered! Kiryu roared, shattering a wooden pallet with a kick. Always have an exit! Izuku saw the wall behind him. Trap. Instead of panicking, he jumped. He channeled power into his legs, not 100%, but a focused burst. He ran up the side of the shipping container, flipped backward over Kiryu's head, and landed behind him. Shoot-style prototype. Izuku landed and swept Kiryu's legs. Kiryu hopped over the sweep, grabbed Izuku's collar, and threw him. But Izuku didn't hit the ground hard. He tucked his chin, rolled, and sprang back to his feet instantly. Yukimi breakfall. Good! Kiryu yelled. You're not glass anymore, Midoriya. You're rubber! They clashed again in the center of the yard. Izuku threw a right hook. Kiryu parried it. But Izuku used the momentum of the parry to spin and deliver a back kick. It connected with Kiryu's forearm. Thud. The force pushed Kiryu back 2 steps. Both of them stopped. They were breathing heavy. The sun had fully set, and the yard was lit only by the distant streetlights and the fading glow of One for All. Izuku gasped, his hands on his knees. I didn't break anything. I maintained it, the whole time. Kiryu straightened up. He adjusted his collar. He wasn't winded, but he was sweating. You stopped flinching, Kiryu said. He walked over and placed a hand on Izuku's head. It was a heavy, rough hand, but the gesture was gentle. You fought with heat. You controlled the flow. You didn't let the power control you. Izuku looked up, beaming. Did I pass lesson 3? You passed, Kiryu said. He reached into his pocket and tossed a small bottle to Izuku. It was a Stamina Royale. The expensive stuff. Drink that. It tastes like battery acid, but it'll fix your bruises. Izuku cracked the seal and downed it. He felt warmth flood his limbs instantly. Whoa! What is in this stuff? Herbs, Kiryu said vaguely. And grit. He picked up his jacket and dusted it off. Pack your bags, Midoriya. Tonight you sleep. Tomorrow morning, we get on the train. To Hosu? Izuku asked, the thrill of the spar fading into a nervous chill. To Hosu, Kiryu confirmed. He looked at the dark horizon. I got a call from Date. Things are getting messy there. The hero killer isn't just hunting heroes anymore. He's disrupting the peace. And the local Yakuza, the real ones, not these street punks, are getting restless. Kiryu turned to face the city lights. A storm is coming, kid. But after today, I think you might be ready to weather it. Izuku clenched his fist. The green lightning was gone, but he could still feel the hum under his skin. The heat. It wasn't scary anymore. It felt like a part of him. I'll be ready, Izuku said firmly. Kiryu smirked. Good. Because in Hosu, we don't play by tournament rules. The train station in Muzurafu was a hive of activity. It was the frantic, beating heart of a city that never really knew how to relax. Even with the specter of the hero killer stain dominating the news cycles and the recent chaos of the UA Sports Festival still fresh in the public consciousness, people had places to be. Izuku Midoriya stood near the ticket gates, clutching the strap of his yellow backpack. His knuckles were white. He wasn't looking at the departure board. He was staring at his phone screen. Read, 10:42 p.m. yesterday. From Tenya Ida. Message, I'm fine. Focus on your internship, Midoriya-kun. He's not fine, Izuku murmured to himself, the screen of his smartphone reflecting in his worried eyes. He's definitely not fine. Staring at the screen won't make him text back, a deep voice rumbled from above him. Izuku jumped, nearly dropping his phone. Kazuma Kiryu was standing behind him, looking like a statue carved from granite and dressed in a gray suit. He held a small travel bag in one hand and a lit cigarette in the other, standing in the designated smoking area just a few feet away. Kiryu-san. I was just checking the route to Hosu, Izuku lied poorly. Kiryu took a drag, exhaling a plume of smoke that drifted up toward the station rafters. You're a terrible liar, Midoriya. It's the glasses kid, right? The one with engines in his legs. Izuku slumped. Yes. Ida-kun. His brother was attacked by the hero killer in Hosu. He says he's there for an internship with Manuel, but I know him. He's serious, and he honors the law, but he loves his brother more than anything. If he's going there for revenge. Revenge, Kiryu repeated the word. It sounded heavy coming from him, like a stone dropping into a deep well. It's a fuel that burns hot, but it burns dirty. It leaves nothing but ash behind. You sound like you know about it, Izuku said quietly. Kiryu looked away, his eyes focusing on something far beyond the station walls. I've seen enough of it. Men who threw away their lives for a grudge, families destroyed because someone couldn't let go of the past. In my line of work, or my former line of work, revenge was usually just a fancy word for suicide. He crushed the cigarette into an ashtray and picked up his bag. Come on. We have an hour before the bullet train to Hosu. We need to eat. You can't fight demons on an empty stomach. Smile Burger, the philosopher's meal. They ended up at a Smile Burger near the station plaza. It was a brightly lit, sterile fast food joint that smelled of grease and artificial happiness. The contrast between the cheery pop music playing over the speakers and Kiryu's grim demeanor was almost comical. Izuku sat across from him, picking at a tray of fries. Kiryu was methodically dismantling a double Smile Burger with the seriousness of a bomb disposal expert. Kiryu-san, Izuku started, dipping a fry in ketchup. You said you ran an orphanage? In Okinawa. That's right, Kiryu said, chewing. Morning glory. Why? Izuku asked. I mean, you're so strong. You could be a top pro hero. You could be rich. Why run an orphanage? Kiryu paused. He wiped his mouth with a napkin. Because strength is useless if you don't have something to protect. For a long time, I thought strength was about being the toughest guy in the room, about not letting anyone look down on you. But that's just vanity. He leaned back, the plastic chair creaking under his weight. There was a girl, Kiryu said, his voice softening imperceptibly. Haruka. I raised her. And now, I have 8 other kids. They look at me not as a fighter, but as a guardian. That weight, the weight of their futures, that's heavier than any dumbbell. That's what makes you strong. Izuku listened, mesmerized. It was different from All Might's philosophy. All Might was the pillar of peace, holding up the sky for everyone. Kiryu was a foundation. A bedrock for the few people he loved. The hero killer, Kiryu continued, claims he wants to purge society of fake heroes. He thinks conviction comes from ideology. He's wrong. Conviction comes from love. From responsibility. If your friend Ida is going to Hosu to kill a man, he's already lost. But if he's going there to protect someone, maybe he has a chance. I have to stop him, Izuku said firmly. I can't let him become a murderer. Then you better be ready to bleed for him, Kiryu said. Because words don't stop a man set on vengeance. Only fists do. They finished their meal in silence. As they stood up to leave, Kiryu grabbed his bag. Let's go. We'll cut through the construction zone. It's a shortcut to the platform. The construction zone. The area between the commercial district and the train station was undergoing major renovations. It was a labyrinth of orange cones, yellow tape, and half-finished concrete pillars. The sound of jackhammers echoed in the distance. Izuku walked beside Kiryu, his mind still racing with thoughts of Ida. He was analyzing potential scenarios. If Ida finds Stain, he'll engage. Stain's quirk is blood-related, based on the news reports. Close-quarters combat is dangerous. I need to be fast. Hey you! A shrill, manic voice cut through the air. Izuku looked up. Standing atop a stack of steel I-beams was a construction worker. He wore a standard yellow hard hat and a blue uniform, but something was off. The uniform was unbuttoned to the waist, revealing a lean, wiry chest covered in tattoos. And instead of a tool belt, he wore snakeskin shoes. Most notably, he wore an eye patch over his left eye. We can't go this way. The worker shouted, striking a bizarre pose, one hand on his hip, the other pointing accusingly at them. Restricted area. Very dangerous. Falling rocks. Exploding pipes. Zombie attacks. Kiryu stopped. He sighed, a long, deep sound that seemed to come from the bottom of his soul. He pinched the bridge of his nose. Majima no Nizan, Kiryu groaned. Kiryu-chan. The construction worker's demeanor changed instantly. He grinned, revealing a row of teeth that looked sharp enough to chew through the steel beams he was standing on. I knew it was you. I could smell that cheap cologne from 3 blocks away. It's not cheap, Kiryu muttered defensively. And I'm busy. I have a train to catch. A train? The man named Majima cackled. He leaped from the top of the beam stack, a drop of at least 20 feet. Izuku gasped. Look out! Majima didn't use a quirk to slow his fall. He spun in midair, his body twisting like a tornado, and landed gracefully on one hand, freezing in a breakdance pose before springing to his feet. You can't leave yet, Kiryu-chan. Majima pulled a dagger out of somewhere. The blade glinted with a menacing purple sheen. We haven't played in ages. I came all the way to this hero-infested dump just to find you. Izuku stepped forward, activating full cowling at 5%. Green lightning crackled around him. Kiryu-san, get back! Is this a villain? I'll handle him. Majima blinked his one good eye at Izuku. He tilted his head, looking like a confused, predatory bird. Ha! Who's the broccoli head? Majima asked, pointing the knife at Izuku. Is this your kid, Kiryu-chan? He looks soft. Squishy. He's my intern, Kiryu said, dropping his bag. And he's not squishy. He's learning. Intern? Majima's grin widened, stretching almost to his ears. So the dragon has a disciple? Interesting. Very interesting. Suddenly, Majima blurred. He didn't run. He exploded into motion. A trail of purple energy, heat, trailed behind him as he dashed toward Kiryu. Kiryu-chan. Let's see if you've gone soft. Clang. Kiryu didn't dodge. He raised his arm, wrapped in his jacket, and blocked the dagger strike. Sparks flew. Midoriya, stay back. Kiryu barked. This isn't a normal fight, but, stay back. Kiryu shoved Majima away. Majima backflipped, laughing maniacally. Come on, come on. Let's dance. What followed was the most confusing, terrifying, and awe-inspiring fight Izuku had ever witnessed. He had seen All Might fight. That was power. Shockwaves that changed the weather. He had seen Aizawa fight. That was precision. Calculated takedowns. This was chaos. Majima was everywhere at once. He moved with a speed that defied physics, but it wasn't a speed quirk. It was pure, unadulterated athleticism mixed with insanity. He spun on his head, his legs flashing out like helicopter blades. He threw the knife, caught it, threw it again. He materialized a baseball bat from thin air and swung it with enough force to shatter concrete. Style breaker, style slugger, style thug. Majima switched between them flawlessly. Kiryu met him head-on. The dragon of Dojima was the anchor in the storm. He used the beast style to pick up a roadside barricade and slam it into Majima. Majima just laughed and slid under the barricade. Analysis. Izuku's eyes darted back and forth. His movements, they have no pattern. He feints with his upper body but strikes with his legs. He uses centrifugal force to amplify his strikes. It's like watching a breakdancer fight a tank. Too slow, Kiryu-chan. Majima yelled, delivering a spinning kick to Kiryu's chest. Kiryu grunted, sliding back a few feet. You're annoying as ever, Majima. And you're still a brick wall. Majima laughed. Then, his single eye darted toward Izuku. Hey, broccoli boy! Izuku froze. And me? If you're Kiryu-chan's student, you gotta show me something good. Majima licked his lips. Let's see if the dragon knows how to teach. Majima ignored Kiryu and lunged at Izuku. Midoriya! Kiryu shouted, starting to run, but Majima was faster. He was in Izuku's face instantly. Crap! Too close. Izuku instinctively threw a punch, a standard right Detroit smash at 5%. Majima didn't even block. He dropped to the floor, spinning on his back. His legs scissored out, sweeping Izuku's ankles. Whoa! Izuku hit the dirt hard. Boring! Majima taunted, springing up and spinning the baseball bat. Punch, punch, punch! Is that all heroes do? No flair. No pizzazz. He swung the bat downward. Izuku rolled away frantically. The bat smashed into the concrete where his head had been a second ago. Crack. He's trying to kill me. Use your head, kid! Majima cackled, pursuing him. Or lose it! Izuku scrambled to his feet. He tried to create distance, hopping backward using full cowling. Majima gave chase, but not by running. He was literally breakdancing toward him, a windmill of limbs and violence. How do I fight this? Izuku panicked. I can't predict where the attack is coming from. His hands are on the ground, but his feet are attacking. Izuku threw another punch, aiming for Majima's torso as he spun. Majima simply twisted his body in mid-spin, dodging the punch by a hair's breadth, and delivered a sharp kick to Izuku's forearm. Ack! Izuku clutched his arm. Your arms are too short! Majima yelled, switching to a knife stance. You're trying to box a whirlwind. You need reach. You need rhythm. Reach. Rhythm. Izuku watched Majima. The mad dog was spinning again, building momentum. Kiryu-sen taught me to use the environment. But right now, there's nothing to grab. Just open ground. Kiryu-sen taught me to flow. To use the heat, and Majima. Majima is using his whole body. Izuku looked at his own arms. They were scarred. They were tired. Even at 5%, repeated impacts were taking a toll. My punches are linear, Izuku realized. Just like Kiryu-san said. They go from A to B. But Majima moves in circles. He uses centrifugal force. Majima launched a flying kick. My legs, Izuku thought. They're 3 times stronger than my arms. And they have more reach. Time seemed to slow down. The heat that Kiryu spoke of bubbled in Izuku's gut. It wasn't the angry boil of One for All. It was a blue, focused flame. Don't punch. Izuku didn't block. He dropped his stance. He channeled the power of One for All not into his fists, but into his calves and thighs. Load the spring. As Majima came in, Izuku pivoted on his left foot. He didn't just step, he spun. He mimicked the rotation he had seen Majima use. Smash! But it wasn't a smash. It was a whip. Izuku's right leg lashed out. A high arcing kick. It caught Majima by surprise. The mad dog raised his bat to block, expecting a punch. The shin connected with the bat. Clang thud. The force was significantly higher than his punches. The leverage of the leg, combined with the rotation, generated a shockwave that blew the dust away. Majima was knocked back. He skidded across the gravel, his snakeskin shoes carving trenches in the dirt. He stopped, lowering the bat. He looked at the bat. It had a slight dent in it. Then, he looked at Izuku. Silence descended on the construction site. Izuku stood on one leg, his other leg still raised in the follow-through of the kick. He was panting, sweat dripping down his face. Green lightning crackled around his iron-soled red shoes. I reached him. Oh ho! Majima's face split into a grin of genuine delight. Not bad. Not bad at all. Kiryu stepped up beside Izuku, his fists clenched, ready to intervene. He looked at Izuku's stance, the raised leg, the guard protecting the face, the mobility. You switch styles, Kiryu noted, sounding impressed. My arms. Izuku gasped, lowering his leg. They're too damaged. And my reach is too short against him. But my legs. I can keep him at bay. I can use the rotation to match his chaos. Shoot style, Kiryu named it. Or at least, the start of it. Majima sheathed his dagger. He dusted off his construction uniform. Well? Majima clapped his hands. That was fun! You got potential, kid. You're not as stiff as the other heroes. You got a little bit of the dog in ya. He walked over to Kiryu and poked him in the chest. But don't think this is over, Kiryu-chan. I just came to say hello. And to tell you. Majima's expression suddenly turned serious. The playfulness vanished, replaced by the cold, hard gaze of a Yakuza patriarch. Watch your back in Hosu. The Omi Alliance isn't the only thing moving in the shadows. There's a nastier smell in the air. Smells like rotting blood. Kiryu nodded solemnly. Stain. Maybe, Majima shrugged, the manic grin returning. Maybe something worse. Anyway, I gotta go. Shift's over. Majima sprinted toward a nearby manhole cover. He lifted it with one hand, gave a jaunty salute, and dove in. Have a nice trip. The manhole cover clanged shut. Izuku stared at the spot where the mad dog had vanished. What was that? That, Kiryu said, straightening his tie, was Goro Majima. My rival. My brother. And the biggest headache of my life. He put a heavy hand on Izuku's shoulder. But he was right about one thing. You adapted. You stopped trying to be All Might, and you started fighting like yourself. Izuku looked down at his legs. He flexed his toes inside his shoes. The power felt different there. Grounded. Explosive. All Might punches the sky, Izuku thought. But to fight on the street, I need to stand on the ground. Let's go, Kiryu said, picking up his bag. The train won't wait for us. The bullet train to Hosu. The train ride was quiet. The landscape blurred past in streaks of gray and green. Izuku sat by the window, his notebook open. He was sketching furiously. Entry, Mad Dog style, Majima-san. Unpredictable movement. Low center of gravity. Uses centrifugal force. New concept, shoot style. Focus one for all into legs. Increases range by 20%. Increases striking power due to larger muscle groups. Iron soles needed? Asked Hatsum-san later. Kiryu sat next to him, reading a newspaper. Kiryu-san, Izuku asked, not looking up from his notes. Why does he fight you? Majima-san, I mean. Kiryu lowered the paper. To keep me sharp. And because, in our world, fighting is how we communicate. Words can be lies. But a fist? A fist is honest. When you trade blows with someone, you learn who they really are. He looked at Izuku. You're going to Hosu to find Ida. When you find him, words might not reach him. He's drowning in grief. If you want to save him, Midoriya, you might have to fight him, or fight for him so hard that he wakes up. Izuku nodded slowly. I'm ready. Are you? Kiryu asked. Hosu isn't a sparring match. The hero killer kills. He doesn't hold back like I do. He doesn't play around like Majima. Kiryu reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small, rectangular object. He tossed it to Izuku. It was a business card. Pure white, with gold lettering. Kiryu Kazuma. 4th chairman of the Tojo clan, retired. Keep that, Kiryu said. If we get separated, and things go bad, show that to the weirdest looking guy you can find on the street. It might buy you 5 minutes. Tojo clan? Izuku whispered. Wait. 4th chairman? You were the boss of the Yakuza? Retired, Kiryu emphasized. I'm just a civilian now. Izuku stared at the card. He suddenly realized the magnitude of the man sitting next to him. He wasn't just a strong brawler. He was a legend of the underworld. A dragon who had walked away from the throne. Kiryu-san. Rest now, Kiryu commanded, closing his eyes. We arrive in 20 minutes. When those doors open, the training wheels come off. Izuku put the card in his pocket, right next to his provisional hero license. He looked out the window. The city of Hosu was approaching. He could see smoke rising in the distance. Ida-kun, please be safe. Izuku clenched his fists. No, he clenched his legs. He tightened his calves, feeling the muscle respond. I'm not the same Deku who broke his fingers at the sports festival. I'm the dragon's disciple now. And I'm coming to get you. Arrival, Hosu City. The station at Hosu was tense. Even before they exited the turnstiles, Izuku could feel the unease in the air. There were more police than usual. The civilians walked quickly, heads down. Keep your eyes open, Kiryu murmured as they stepped out onto the street. Read the flow of the city. Izuku scanned the crowd. He saw a man in a hoodie loitering near an alley. He saw a group of salarymen rushing into a bar, looking too eager to get drunk. He saw a patrol car drifting slowly down the main strip. It feels tight, Izuku said. Like a rubber band about to snap. Good observation, Kiryu said. Suddenly, a massive explosion shook the ground. Boom! A plume of black smoke erupted from the downtown district, a few blocks away. Screams began to echo through the streets. A villain attack? Izuku gasped. No, Kiryu said, his eyes narrowing as he looked at the smoke. That's not just an attack. That's a distraction. A screeching roar pierced the air. It wasn't human. From the smoke, a creature emerged. It had exposed brains, beak-like mouth, and muscles that looked unnatural. A Noma. Noma! Izuku yelled. Like the ones at USJ, pandemonium broke out. People started running. Cars swerved and crashed. Midoriya, Kiryu said calmly, removing his jacket and tossing it onto a nearby bench. He rolled up his sleeves, revealing the dragon tattoo beneath the fabric of his shirt. Yes. Izuku was already charging up his legs. Go find your friend, Kiryu ordered. Ida is hunting Stain. Stain will be in the shadows, away from this noise. This Noma, this is just noise. But I can't leave you alone with that thing. Izuku pointed at the Nomu, which was currently flipping a bus. Kiryu cracked his knuckles. A blue heat aura flared around him, brighter and hotter than Izuku had ever seen. It was so intense it actually cracked the pavement beneath his leather shoes. I told you, Kiryu growled, stepping forward. I handled the small fry. He looked back at Izuku one last time. Go! Run like the wind, shoot style. Izuku hesitated for a fraction of a second. Then, he nodded. Yes, sir! Izuku turned and sprinted. He didn't run like a jogger. He leaned forward, channeling 5% into his legs, and blasted off, bounding off a wall to reach the rooftops. As he leaped away, he looked back. He saw the Noma charge at Kiryu. He saw Kiryu step in. He saw the dragon of Dojima wind up a punch that looked like it carried the weight of an entire life. Smash! The sound of the impact echoed across the city, louder than the explosion. Izuku turned his head forward. Tears pricked his eyes, but he wiped them away. Ida! I'm coming. He leaped across the rooftops of Hosu, a green streak of lightning hunting for a darker shadow.